Folks, I have to admit, I did not want to do this topic. I feel bad that I have to do this topic, but you know what, Beth? Multiple offers are back.
Yes.
In some markets, they are back in a big way. So as someone who's been in the game a while, somebody who's a top 1% producer, which means you close transactions.
Yep.
How can you help somebody in a multiple situation get their offer accepted? Because there can only be one yes answer.
Yes, thank you, Mike. And I want to give a shout out to Angel Ray 646. This was your question in the comments. We pay attention and like to give people what they ask for. So it's a great timely topic, what to do to get your offer accepted if you have to compete. And we are back in that. We're doing that again. We're back to that. I was just talking this morning about $1 million. I saw something about $1 million house in Seattle got 20 offers, and that's just one of probably a dozen that I've heard about in the last couple of days, all around the greater Seattle area where I operate. Now, granted, you need to know as a buyer, I know, you need to know what's going on in your specific market. So I'm going to speak to what we do in our market and what works for me and for my clients and for the winning offers on my listings when it's competitive. But just know that you need to do your own individual research in your specific market. So and that's my first point, is really get to know what the market is so you know what's happening. And so which listings are going to be most likely to have multiple offers? What are agents saying out there? The agent needs to call, the buyer's agent needs to call the listing agent to get the pulse of what's going on with that listing. That is very, very critical. And that is a step that is very often skipped or
Well,
just
so let me stop you right there. Just so the audience, again, I didn't want to create this video. It's really bad that the market has gone back to 20 offers on $1 million properties. Guys, are you kidding me? So I just want to be clear, Beth. You find a house you like. You have an agent you're working with. You call it a buyer's agent. One of the first things that buyer agent should do is reach out to the listing agent and say, what's going on? What's the pulse? What's been the activity before you even write an offer? Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Correct. Now, a point I want to start off with here is I'm not giving anyone permission to make crazy offers that are bad deals. So I'm not saying that, but let's say that this is the right house, right property for you. You decided that you were willing to do what it takes to within limits to put your hat in the ring and try to be successful and hopefully win the bidding war. Okay. I don't think that bidding wars in themselves, nobody likes the bidding war as a buyer, but there are times when sometimes it can make sense, and I've done it myself, and there's some parameters around it. But the first thing you need to do is find out, are there going to be multiple offers? Has anyone submitted an offer yet? And here's the most important question. What is important to the seller? What's the seller situation? What are they looking for in a winning offer? It's not always what you think it is.
Yeah, I want to be very clear because I just want to break this down. Again, you're a buyer, you're working in this market, you're trying to buy a home for a couple of years, it's not working, you're fed up, blah, 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 you're stressed out. You find the house, for whatever that means to you. You like it. You're going to go to your buyer's agent and say, ask these 3 questions of the listing agent. 1, how much activity has been on the house? 2, are there currently any offers? And again, activity and offers are very different. Offer, is written down. And then 3, what's important to the seller? Because I think a lot of people feel like it's price and price only. You and I both know sometimes price isn't the number one thing. So that's what you're telling your buyer's agent to ask the listing agent, correct?
Yes, and exactly. And I would say if it's not price for a seller, it's stress, and reducing stress is the thing, making it easy for them, doing what we call a rent back, where they live in the house for say a month or up to 2 months after closing. Again, there's all sorts of things that can be discussed about that, but first the discussion needs to be made. And you need to get on the radar with that agent early. You don't want to pester them, but you want to be on their radar so they know, okay, Beth has a buyer who's interested in this listing, for example. And so the next thing to do is to figure out what the plan is for offer review, and if there is a plan. So I think the best agents out there are going to have a plan for here's how it's going to go down when we're reviewing these offers. We're going to do this at this time, and here's the things that the sellers are interested in. Here's when we're going to respond. Here's what the process is going to look like for you to make your offer better if you want to. And what I do is I put together an offer guide, and I have it attached in listing with all the FAQs that explains, okay, all offers due to me at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, and I'll have an update for everyone who submits an offer by around midday. If you want to make some changes, you'll have the opportunity to do so. If you choose to do so, have them offers back to me, revised offers in by X time. I'm meeting the seller at 4, and they're going to decide at that time. So that's just a rundown, a brief example of what a plan would look like. But what I have found is that sometimes when I'm throwing my buyer's hat in the ring on a really competitive listing, is sometimes there's no communication and no plan at all. So then you have to kind of guess. So, but if you're a listing agent at the helm here, having the plan and the communication processes set up in advance is going to really, really help your client, the seller, get the most out of their home sale, and also helps the buyers be able to put their best foot forward, because if they don't know what they need to do to make their offer better, then they're not going to be doing that. They're just going to be guessing and throwing a dart. So another thing I would say is in our market, the Seattle market, offer review dates are very common when it heats up. The minute houses start routinely going past that offer review date, that's the first thing that gets dropped. And then we just go, okay, offers reviewed upon receipt. And there's usually an annual cycle on that. And it goes like this, where there might be offer review dates all the way through the hot season for us, which tends to taper off around May. And then it goes back to offers reviewed upon receipt. But if there's an offer review date, it's important to know, when is that? And is the seller going to stick to that review date, or are they going to take an early offer? And here's a hint. If you're a buyer and you really, really want that house and there's an offer review date, go ahead and put the offer in early.
I was going to
ask, and make sure it's
that.
so good that they will be compelled to take it early.
So let me ask you a question.
Seller, don't do that, generally speaking.
Yeah. So let me just kind of play this out, because I love this game. So let's say it's Thursday and offer review date's Monday. You go to the house, you like it, you write a strong offer, and you put a clock on it that says you have to reply by Sunday. If you were representing the buyer, would you do that? Let's go there first. Would you kind of try to short circuit the offer review date?
So there's no law saying that the seller has to stick with that review date. They can't. So in our MLS, there's a field that says offers reviewed on this date, and it says right in there, you can't change it. Seller may accept an offer sooner, in parentheses. Like, there's no law. So as a buyer, I don't see any downside to throwing that offer out early. If the seller says, sorry, we're going to stick with the review date, this is the plan that we're sticking with, we're honoring that date to be fair to everybody, and it works for us, then you resubmit it on that day. Right. So
then you just change the date.
Yeah, but you need to make it compelling enough that it's worth foregoing all those other potential offers out there.
Yeah.
So we in our area, we make people move fast. So say if somebody submitted something, 10 o'clock on Tuesday, it would be like expiring at that day at 9 o'clock. So we do same day.
Short clock.
Same day. Yeah. Almost always same day. So people don't want to leave it hanging around out there to get shopped for days. So, because then it's very easy for someone else to come along and meet it. Your agent might say something like, oh my gosh, we really love this house, but my buyers, they really need to buy. We're putting together a really great offer and here's the reasons why we think it's strong and going to close and work for what your seller needs. However, there's some other ones out there, and if they have to wait, they may end up making offers on these others because they really need to get a house. And if you just phrase it that way, not try to bully people, like take it now or else, but like, we're out of here,
Mm-hmm.
But what I have found is on the seller side is that typically, which I work mostly with sellers, I do work with some with buyers too. But when I'm a listing agent and somebody comes in early, if I'm getting a ton of interest and activity, then I know that we will get better on the review date, and it makes sense to wait. And I have found the same buyer that comes in early will often come in much higher and more aggressive on the review date. However, when you're the buyer, do it. Go ahead and put it out there. And so you got to make it something that the seller will want to take early. And for some, it's stressful to deal with that intensity and they
Yeah.
just want to be done.
Yeah. Well, let me give you my secret to bidding wars, because I hate bidding wars. I don't recall ever getting into one. Um, so let me say it this way. I never got in a bidding war and won. Because again, I'm an investor. I have my numbers. I know my numbers. I don't get attached emotionally to any piece of real estate. I always believe there's a next one. But please hear me. I love not being the winner, because generally speaking, the winner overpays. Generally speaking, the winner is stretched because, egos happen and you do that. But what I do on the house, the one I want, is I put a reminder in my calendar to follow up once a week with the listing agent, just to remind them that, yes, I am here in case that buyer falls out. Now, the
Yeah.
first week, nothing happens. The second week, probably nothing happens. The third week, heck, maybe it closes and then you cross it off the list. But you
Yeah.
know what? About 20%, maybe 30% of the time, that first offer gets shaky and I just scoop in with my number and get the deal without it going back on the MLS. I like
Yes.
no competition.
That's smart. And here's the thing too, is if it does get shaky, the last thing the seller wants is to go back on the market
They
with a
don't want to
failed
do it
sale. You
again.
won't get the bidding war again, chances are. And then
No.
you're damaged goods, so to speak, or people think it's damaged goods.
Yeah.
So that's a good
Yeah.
strategy.
That's what I do. Again, I did not want to make this video. What I said at the open, I meant. But we are where we are. What I want doesn't
Yeah.
matter, right? The spring selling season started early. I'm hearing from agents across the country about stale inventory is now gone. Clean new inventory going quickly. Below the median on fire. Luxury stuff still has a problem, but we are where we are. And if rates go to sub 6, like some people are calling, this gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're
And
here.
if that happens later in the year, like mid-year, I think that might make our local market heat up again when we're slowing down.
Bananas.
So
Just
it's very
bananas.
important to be responsive to what's going on in the market and just to be aware as a buyer, as an agent, as an investor.
So
There still is
let's
a
talk
little
to
bit of stale
buyers.
inventory out there, not a lot. Those are the ones, not everything is going to be, but here's another tip. If it doesn't go pending on the review date, sometimes it doesn't because maybe they're overpriced. You can't overprice a little bit or it's not
Going.
presented well. The pictures are ugly or whatever. And they put a review date on there, circle back that next day. And if you still see it, or even later in the day on the review day, you don't see it go to pending. Hey, did they receive offers? Because then you can swoop in and get it just with your,
Yep.
not competing against anyone else, just yourself.
Yeah, let's talk to buyers. It's tough out there. You are a top 1% agent. You've been doing this, we'll call it decades. How does a buyer who's going to do one deal, he's going to buy one house and never buy one again, let's just say it's their forever home. How does that person get on the radar of a great agent or a great agent's team? How do they? Because again, what you're talking about doing, bidding early, 24-hour clock, making phone calls ahead of time. Beth, I don't know about you, but that's work.
It's
And a
work.
lot of real estate agents don't like to work. The good ones do. The great ones do. How does a buyer who's going to buy one house get an agent that they know is going to work for them? How does that happen?
So a great agent is going to be responsive to that buyer. It's the agent's job to do good work following up with buyers when they reach out. So I'd say one of the first things I would say is do some work on Google, etc. Read reviews on Zillow, Google, wherever people are. That's the most places where we find most agent reviews. Look at what others have said, and that will give you a good indicator of who maybe knows what they're doing. And then reach out to that person and see how long it takes them to reach back. And if there's a cell phone number on there, go to their website and find their cell phone number, text it, maybe do an email or do both. And if you never hear back, then I don't know. Every once in a while, something gets lost in the shuffle. So maybe try again if something happens, but glitches happen with text sometimes. I get that. But if you don't hear back, if you call and you text and you don't hear anything, then maybe move on. For whatever reason, it's not probably going to happen.
there's no maybe. Move on. There's a
Yeah.
lot of licensed agents out there. Try again.
There are way too many, and the typical agent does less than one transaction a year is the math of it. So you think about it.
That's
That person's
comical
not
to
going to
me.
know what to do. They probably have another job.
They probably have another job.
So it's especially now with there being fewer transactions, agents have to work harder for what they have. And so you need somebody who's going to be responsive and on top of it and be able to sit down with you and do a consultation to help coach you about what needs to be done. And I would say if you want to increase your chances as a buyer of having a successful experience, first of all, I would interview, oftentimes more than one. If you talk to one agent and they seem like they're a superstar and they have the time to take care of you and they're going to do what you need, then be coachable. You need to be, it's easy to Google national real estate trends and data, but like none of that's going to apply to your specific market.
Yeah.
It's going to be very general, just like you talk about with the numbers, like there's the national market and then there's your buy box,
right?
Different things. So I would say just be, find somebody who's going to be responsive and has the skills and the reviews you need. Like a good agent got there for a reason in a tough industry, and it's because they're excellent at what they do.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's the goal. Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. What I would tell someone, again, if you're a buyer, like you're a home buyer, you're going to buy one home your entire life. This is like the transaction. It's really scary, really nerve-wracking. What I would tell you, one of the indicators I would look for is the agent making me recommendations, right? Are they saying, have you done this? Have you thought about that? Have you looked here? Because again, that agent, ideally is doing dozens of transactions a year, has 5, 6, 10, 20 years experience. So you're not their first brand new client, right? This is your only time, but they've walked 100 people through this process. So are they being coachable? Are they being helpful? Are they really leading you down the path? That's what I'd be looking for.
Yeah. And if they can anticipate what the questions are. So like for me and my team, we've identified the questions that we get most common especially when someone's under contract. People want to know about this and that. And we got to assume that people don't know anything about how this process works, because a typical person doesn't know anything about how the process, real estate purchase or sale process works. Investors, they have a better idea, of course, experienced ones, but a lot of people don't. They may have never purchased or sold a home, or they did 10, 20 years ago, and it was completely different than it is now. So you're going to need somebody who's going to try to, be proactive on here's what to expect for the next steps. And here's what's going to happen now. This thing happened in your transaction today. Here's the paperwork for your file. Remember to do these 3 things before closing tomorrow. Like those kind of communications you're going to need before they even think to ask. So I think the best agents will be able to do that. But back to the bidding wars, can I give a couple other tips here?
Do it. Let's wrap it up.
So you're going to need to do as much due diligence as possible before the offer is accepted, which means removing loopholes, inspecting ahead of time, getting your financing in order, making sure you're covered for a potential appraisal, making sure, so in our market, if you've got 20 offers on a listing, the winning offer is going to have 0 contingencies, not even financing, not appraisal, nothing. Like earnest money is going to be large and it's going to be non-refundable. So there's going to be, and that's going to be beyond a lot of people's comfort zone. What I would say, I give people advice that, you want to make sure that you're not going so far beyond your comfort zone that you'll regret that you ever had your offer accepted. Do not do that. I don't want anyone to ever be uncomfortable with what they had to do to get a house. I mean, it's never going to be like super, feel like warm and fuzzy to have to go through this process, but you want to make sure you're going to be able to sleep at night. I don't want anyone to lose sleep at night because of what they had to do to get their offer accepted. But with the right coaching and the right due diligence, you're able to do all those things that you would have done maybe in the first week of being under contract. You do that ahead of time. And then you can make your offer on Tuesday, for example, after you've had inspection done, you've reviewed all the title work, the disclosures, et cetera. You're able to sign off on those things. Another thing that we see common here in the Seattle area that may not be nationwide, I know it's not nationwide, but it's very common in our area to have escalation clauses. And those is it's basically the essence of an escalation clause. Is say we'll go with the $1 million list price. Our offer is $1 million. It would be something like this. Our offer is $1 million. We're willing to pay $10,000 over highest offer received by seller, not to exceed your cap, not under any circumstance to exceed 1.15. I'm just saying, just throw it out there. But and our MLS has a form, because there's a lot of people like, well, what about this? What about that? What if you get multiple escalation clauses? Yeah, it requires a little bit of math. But we have a form that basically the lawyers drew it up to try to answer get all the gray area out of it. Is if this happens, then this happens. In order for it to be a valid escalation clause, it has to have these things, and it's locked in solid. So what it is you can give your cap at that point where you feel like, okay, if I get it for this price, I'm okay with it. I can sleep at night. If I don't, I'm okay. I'm at peace. I'm at peace because somebody else wanted it more than I was comfortable with, and you got to let it go. But
I agree.
We do see that a lot in our area. Sometimes people will say, well, what if you say you're willing to pay $1,150,000, why wouldn't they just counter back at $1,150,000? Like, well, the buyer has to sign off on that. And if the buyer knows you don't have a competing offer in our market, you have to show the full competing offer, so we know what that other one was before you base your escalation on that. And I don't want to go in the weeds too much here, Mike, but just know, like, a lot of buyers, if somebody countered back at their max, there's a good chance that buyer would not sign that, and then it can backfire on the seller. So those are some of the more aggressive strategies that people use in our area. Again, just to recap, make sure you've got an agent that knows how to do this. Here's the thing. It's like if you get maybe an inexperienced agent and they haven't been doing this much lately because the market shifted again and now we're back into this, some might be a little rusty on it. And again, you just got to know your limits and where it's time to walk away. And oftentimes it will take several tries to get your offer accepted in this kind of market. And that's okay. There's always another great house getting ready to come on the market at any given time. So hang in there.
Folks, at the end of the day, again, I didn't want to create this video, but if you're going to take your shots, work with the best of the best. Beth, you have an impressive Rolodex across the country. If somebody wanted to get a referral to a top 1% agent, how would they do that?
Yeah, so I'm easy to find at bethtraversogroup.com, or you can Google me and find me here on the One Rental at a Time Facebook group. I'm out there on social media all over the place. So look forward to connecting with people.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks.